Keith Olbermann, our good friend. Keith Olbermann is one of the most anti-Trump people out there. He is, again, has a platform. He on his own YouTube channel. I'm doing this worst person in the world by Keith Olbermann, and it's like a daily or weekly episodic thing. He was on ESPN. They split amicably just so he could do this. So let's take a look at what Keith said. You may see this on Twitter. You may see this all across YouTube or whatever. This came out a few days ago, and I want to react to what he says. And this is a good example of why America is where it is.
They have been given 5 years in the sunlight, and they are a blight that will be with us for generations. There can be no mistaking what is ahead of us in this best of possible scenarios, a period in which a Trump-led minority will continue to terrorize this country. And Trump, whose only barely human delight comes from the applause of the morons in the crowd, will seek that pleasure again and endlessly until the day he dies. We unleashed this terrorism via the activating mechanism of reality television. Trump unleashed his terrorists via the activating mechanism of encouraging them to hate. Trump can be and must be expunged.
So, and I really want to let a lot of what Keith says go, and then I want to react to it. But I just want to preface this, or preface, as some would say. Like, really take into account what he's saying. Really take into account what he's saying, what he's talking about, who he's talking about. He is talking about, quite simply, people who differ from him politically. That's it. That's all he's talking about. He's not talking about people who blew up buildings. He's not talking about people who kidnapped anyone. He's not talking about any of that. He's talking about people who differ from him politically.
The hate he has triggered, the Pandora's box he has opened, they will not be so easily destroyed. So, let us brace ourselves. The task is twofold. The terrorist Trump must be defeated, must be destroyed, must be devoured at the ballot box. And then he and his enablers and his supporters and his collaborators and the Mike Lees and the William Barrs and the Sean Hannitys and the Mike Pences and the Rudy Giulianis and the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Amy Coney Barretts must be prosecuted and convicted and removed from our society while we try to rebuild it.
So, I mean, we like, the verbiage is obvious, right? Like, the verbiage, I mean, he wants to destroy. He wants to eliminate. He wants to prosecute Sean Hannity for just supporting Trump. It's also telling that he's lumping up Sean Hannity with Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, Kyle Rittenhouse we talked about him on this platform. He shot 2 people in the riots, and to think that that's comparable to just supporting Trump really goes to show you where Keith's mind is with all this. Let's keep going.
And to rebuild the world Trump has nearly destroyed by turning it over to a virus. Remember it, even as we dream of a return to reality and safety and the country for which our forefathers died, that the fight is not just to win an election, but to win it by enough to chase, at least for a moment, Trump and the maggots off the stage, and then try to clean up what they left.
So that's the part that is going viral, and if you want to watch the entire thing, I'll link it in the description. It's 14 minutes, but this is... So to me, and every time we talk about the election, I talk about the same thing, right? I talk about, like, you have to take the Trump or the Biden or the Hillary or the whatever out of it. And you have to think about the policy, you have to think about the country, you have to think about all that. Because if you don't, you fall into this. Guys, at the end of the day, Keith Olbermann is talking about fellow Americans who differ from him politically. That's it. When he's talking about prosecute these people, when he's talking about devour them, destroy them, eliminate them, get rid of them, when he's talking about all of that, he's talking about fellow Americans who just vote Republican. That's it. That's all it is. Now, obviously, Kyle Rittenhouse is a little different story than Sean Hannity. Like, I'm fine if you want to prosecute Kyle Rittenhouse, but prosecuting someone for their political beliefs, does that sound like a good America to you? Does that sound like somewhere we need to be? This is where we are now. This is where the media wants you to be now. They don't want you to be a United States of America. Does this sound like a United States of America to you? Does this sound like a bunch of states coming together to make the best country in the world? Is that what this sounds like? Or does this sound like a political takeover from a radical group? I'm not saying that voting left or voting right is the right way. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. Obviously, we're talking about a human level here. Okay? This is not a, hey, let's come together to talk about policy and vote to make America better. That's not what this is. This is let's tear America apart. Let's rip America down the seams and cut it in half. And you have the left and you have the right. This kind of diatribe, this kind of speak, whether it's from the right or left, and we have talked negatively about both the right and the left here. So I'm not trying to advocate for either political platform. But what Keith Olbermann is saying, what he's echoing, is the same thing that a lot of people are saying on both sides. This is where we've lost the plot. This is the problem. The problem is this is not with the United States of America in the forefront of their ideas. This is not to make the United States of America better. This is just to amplify their own voice. This is the head of the echo chamber right here. This is the echo chamber personified. Does this sound like a guy? Does this sound like a guy that wants to talk about some policy and meet in the middle and have right ideas and left ideas and come together and freedom for all? Hell no. He's talking about taking Sean Hannity and people who support Trump and throwing them in cells, sentencing them, getting rid of them, destroying them, devouring them. And what the hell do you think some people are going to hear? Some unhinged people are going to hear this kind of talk and say, well, I've got to drive a truck right through a Trump rally. Or you get people on the right side hearing this kind of diatribe from the far right leaders, and they're going to say, well, guess I got to go blow up a damn liberal voting booth. Like, this is how this happens. We are so far away from what we should be, it's embarrassing. And that's what we preach every single podcast, every single week, is that it isn't any longer a vote for the President of the United States. It isn't any longer a vote for the United States of America. There is no United States of America. Where is America united? You tell me. Where is America united? Because we get this kind of talk on both sides. Right side, left side, doesn't matter. This is all the shit you hear. All the shit you hear is the left is stupid, the left is dumb, don't vote for this, radical this. On the left side, you hear this. Terrorists, destroy them, devour them, eliminate them, take it back. 56% of people said that they feel like their life is better right now than 4 years ago. That's it. All right? Does that sound like Keith? Would you believe that listening to Keith Olbermann? Would you believe that? Or would you believe that there's some kind of tyrannical dictator who is taken the country hostage and has people living in squalor? That's what this sounds like. What reality are these people living in? And by these people, let me also make this clear. By these people, I mean the radical left and the radical right. All right, I'm not talking about just radical left. I'm not talking about just radical right. I'm not even talking about just Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann here is just a face for what we're talking about. But what reality are these people living in where they feel like, I mean, on the right, you've got people who believe that there's some kind of Chinese virus that's being implanted in people and there's some kind of slow takeover and their rights are being taken away or some shit. And then on the left, you have people like this who believe that the country is being held hostage by a terrorist group. I mean, it has devolved into this. It has devolved into the worst of society. This is as bad as it gets. And honestly, I think that this kind of talk, this kind of conversation from left or right only will lead to civil war. Because people like this are not trying to work together. They aren't trying to do that. They are dividing. It is you versus me, us versus them. It is not, yeah, we're all Americans. Some of us are Republicans. Some of us are Democratic. Some of us are this. Some of us are that. That is not it. Does it sound like Keith Olbermann feels like he is the same kind of person as the Sean Hannitys and the Donald Trumps? No. And what's the difference? The difference is they lead right. Like, it's just so crazy to me that people are putting this political label ahead of America. They're putting it ahead of them being Americans. We are Americans. We are the United States. And I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to keep hammering that home because that's what's getting lost in all this. It is not blue side over here and red side over here. This isn't a game of Red Rover come over. That's not what this is. This isn't a schoolyard game where you split it in half. They want to do a King Solomon type deal where they take a baby and cut him in half. And man, I hope that reference is right. I'm kind of just spitballing here. But they want to cut the baby in half and give one half of the baby to the left and one half to the right. And the only thing that happens there is the baby dies. And if you're not following along the metaphor, the baby is the United States. If you divide the United States into left, radical right, it's going to die. That's not it. Unless they want a civil war, which it's starting to feel like they do. I'm starting to feel like that they are dying for a civil war. If Biden, and I've said 1,000 times on here too, I have voted for Trump the first time. I'll probably vote for Trump again. I don't like Trump. I think he's a clown. I'm not a MAGA supporter, whatever. If Biden wins, I'm not going to be hiding in a fallout shelter scared to death. Does his policy line up with my ideals? Not really. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. If you think that the President of the United States, the singular person, the President of the United States, has really impacted your life one way or the other, unless you're like a small business owner or unless you have real skin in the game, if you're just a normal person who just goes to work every day, that's it, the impact is minimal. Bottom line. And people hate to hear that. People hate to hear that because they think that, it's the election, it's the presidential election, it's really serious, it's all this shit. It's not. It's not. The difference between Obama and Trump could not be any bigger. The difference in your individual life is probably a lot more affected by the little small things that happen in your bubble than who's in the White House. Hate to say it to you, but that's the case. So all of this that Keith Olbermann is talking about, which sounds like he's trying to play the part of a lunatic, unhinged truther. All of this diatribe, this isn't reality. This is crazy. This is like he's reading from a play or something. He's reading like some Hitler. Like, this is something that if Adolf Hitler was in charge, this is what you should be hearing. Like this is what would be said if there was an actual tyrannical dictator or something. This is what should be said. Not if you're living in one of the most prosperous times in American history. I mean, I just don't understand how he's getting up here and saying this shit. And the worst part is that this stuff should be censored. This stuff should be taken away. When you talk about the fake news or the dangerous news or dangerous video or dangerous propaganda or whatever, this is evidence number one, example number one. This is it. This is the problem. When you hear people telling other people to destroy, devour, dominate, maggots, get rid of them, get rid of this, get rid of that, we got to expel, expunge, remove. That doesn't sound like a election to me. If I was running for city council and I was telling my voters, hey, my opponent, we need to remove him, expel him, destroy him, devour him, eat his bones, drink his blood, I would hope people would be like, hey, dude, just relax. You're running for city council. Like, it's not a big of a deal. I would hope that people wouldn't be behind me with pitchforks and a fire, like banging them, chanting. Like this is the first scene in American History X, the sequel. I mean, this is some lunatic, unhinged conversation here. And a lot of people believe in this one way or another. A lot of people are letting this consume them, letting this consume their lives, whether it's red or blue. And again, don't give a shit. I'm one of the remaining people on this planet who do not care if you are voting Republican or voting Democratic. Don't care. I don't even care if you vote at this point. I've already said that I don't feel like voting at this point, and I have voted in everything. I voted in the Pepsi versus Coke debate way back in the day in like 1996, okay? I vote every chance I get. But when you have stuff like this, you make it real obvious that you aren't voting for a policy, you aren't voting for a country, you are voting to silence your opponent. You are voting to only let your voice, only let your ideals, your policies be heard. That is not any way to live. And the fact that we've gotten this far and the fact that stuff like this is put out there on both sides makes me sick to my stomach. I just can't believe that this is something that's put out there, and there are people who are going to hear this and say, yes, yes, we have to persecute, we have to prosecute, we have to arrest, we have to destroy Sean Hannity. Why? What has he done? Wow, man, he really supports Donald Trump. That alone should be enough to get this shit off the air. That alone should be enough for YouTube to pull this down. I'm pretty sure this is just like a web series, like a YouTube series or whatever from Keith. This isn't like an MSN or anything. I don't think so, at least. So hopefully YouTube takes this stuff down on both sides and they do monitor this kind of stuff. But what a disgusting, vile message to silence, destroy, arrest, prosecute an opposing political view. When did this country become, are you with me or are you against me? When did this country become, are you red or are you blue? If you ask Keith Olbermann, it sure sounds like he wishes restaurants were split into the red side and the blue side. And red people went into one bathroom and blue people went to another. Keith Olbermann is one step away from saying, hey, man, that water fountain's for Democrats only. That's what it sounds like. And this is just propaganda to divide. I hate it. I hate the whole idea of it. It's not what we are. It's not the United States. And the fact that we're 5 years into this and we still have people who live their day every single day with this kind of ideas and they're given a voice and they're given a microphone and they're given a platform. I mean, this guy was on ESPN 2 weeks ago. That's where they are. This guy isn't in a hideout shelter. This guy isn't in a bunker. This guy isn't in a single bedroom studio apartment, with spam and MREs on the wall. This guy was on ESPN 1 month ago. This guy has been a political correspondent. This guy is given a voice, and he will have a voice leading up to the election. And how many people are going to watch these videos, and how many people are going to let this drive them? This is the lead towards a divided States of America, not a united States of America. What a ridiculous video from Keith Olbermann.